Bay Buccaneers from the 48-yard line. Second down, 13. Brady lobs one downfield. Caught ball by Gronkowski inside the 20 to the 15-10. Gronkowski to the 5 to the 4-yard line. Holy guacamole.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up the middle. It's intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. Yeah. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, baby!
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Back at you today for episode 166. We continue our Super Bowl coverage as we are 1 week away from Super Bowl 55 and the first ever home field advantage as the hometown Buccaneers take on the defending Super Bowl champions, Kansas City. It all goes down in Raymond James Stadium next Sunday. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. And we are not alone. Returning guest. We talked to him in the preseason. We talked to him now in the postseason, 1 week before the biggest game in Buccaneers franchise history. From Fox Sports, Mr. Chris Meyers. Welcome back to the Cannon Fire Podcast, Chris.
Hi, Rhett. I'm good to be on with you guys. I thought the Bucs would be a playoff team. I wasn't sure Super Bowl team, but here we are. It's a terrific season.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting time of year for sports fans. I mean, you had the Lightning with their season winning the Stanley Cup. The Rowdies competed for their championship. It's been a great year for the city of Tampa in sports, and Tom Brady leading the Bucs to a Super Bowl, their second franchise appearance, is just the icing on top. Evan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Really excited to have Chris Meyers on the show. Like you said, it's kind of funny, we had him before the season, and a lot of it's uncertainty of whether we're even going to have a season. And now here we are 1 week away from the Bucs playing in the Super Bowl. So
absolutely. We've talked about it, but just a great job from the NFL and actually making this season possible this year. There was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of questions regarding how things were going to play out. And I think the NFL kind of anticipated, couple of missteps along the way, a couple of guys getting sick, but ultimately it didn't cost us a season, and here we are ready to play the Super Bowl in a little over a week. It all comes down to this: Super Bowl 55 in Tampa Bay, Bucs, Chiefs. If you're betting on any of the action this weekend, then check out our friends over at BetOnline. From game spreads and totals to team, player, and coaching props, BetOnline gives you more options to wager than any other place online. And of course, they've always got the online casino, which never closes. So head over to betonline.ag today and take advantage of all the great sign-up bonuses. BetOnline, your online sportsbook expert. Support for CFP is also brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. The Manscaped team has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent a year and a half perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created, and they just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code CANNON20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code CANNON20. Now, Chris, we've had you on the podcast before the season started. We talked about the Bucs move to secure arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. Now that we're here, what do you make of the season that they have put together?
Well, I think we call it the best off-season acquisition, free agent signing move. I mean, other than, drafting a top guy. And I think going back to hiring Bruce Arians, which let's give Jason Light credit. His connections with Steve Keim back in Arizona helped bring Arians out of retirement. This is really the first head coach that is Jason Light's call that he gets to hire, and not somebody else saying, hey, you should hire this guy. And then, of course, adding Brady, and we can run through the list of some of the players drafted and the veterans brought in. It's an amazing season, for the Bucs. The division, it was a little dicey there, losing the head-to-head games, the first two with the Saints, and wasn't sure what to make of that, and then saw their performance in the playoffs against the Saints, and really their defense. And again, having Brady, who's still, if he has to air it out, he'll air it out. But really, they use the term manage a game. He feels the game. He controls the game. He gets a sense of what his offensive line is doing and what the other team is doing and how his defense is playing. So whether to risk it, dump it, take the sack, throw it away, whatever, go for it. and that evidence of that too, even though it was a combination of thinking right before the half with Green Bay. So I'm really impressed for, obviously wild card. And I think Brady, like the great ones have, and I've talked to some players who played against Brady and are closer to the game, who said he really does elevate like a LeBron James, Jordan type of guy in less of an individual sport. So it's really an amazing story. And, my indications are, even whatever the contract is, he said he wants to play till he's 45. I can see him definitely going 2 more years. And maybe more. He likes what he's doing. He's good at it. He's healthy. Takes care of himself. It's one of the true great. If he gets, it's already a great story. If he gets this Super Bowl title, it'll be one of the great, all-time stories in all of not just football but sports.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we talked about earlier how there was some uncertainty of a season even happening. Of course, like we mentioned that NFL had some COVID issues, but they were able to get by it. As a broadcaster, I mean, you have a routine every season, and yet now you're dealing with this where you don't even know if the game that you could be calling is even going to be played. So what was the biggest adjustment for you after you've spent a full season in this? What was the biggest adjustment or biggest difference that you noticed in this type of year?
Well, the first adjustment was, I usually do the preseason TV games there in Tampa with Rondé Barber. I did them with John Lynch before, and so it's with Fox before I get into my regular season mode. So the preseason was wiped out, so it had an effect on everybody. Again, the uncertainty, and then once you started the season, and I want to give the NFL credit not just for getting through the season, because their games were shuffled and postponed and reworked, and I think teams knew going in there might be some unfair things at times. Whether it was the Broncos with the quarterback situation, whether it's brought on by accident or by a player who didn't follow the health guidelines, but nobody, no severe illness. So the safety standards and no missed games. I mean, it's amazing playing outside a bubble with the kind of roster size that the NFL has. I mean, more in the NBA, more in baseball, hockey, whatever you're talking, plus coaching staff, medical people, and the NFL going forward. Roger Goodell. Some people aren't fans. I'm a big fan of. I don't always agree, but he brought that draft forward. The virtual draft set the tone when we were all kind of, what's going to happen? He was like, there's ways to do things, and he used adjust and adapt, which are 2 key words that I think I've lived my life by here in this COVID with my family and my work and whatever. Don't be smart about things, but you can't just sit there and do nothing. You can't panic. You got to go forward with whatever you can, and the NFL has done that. So I was excited to see that, to get the opportunity. I thought it was great that they wanted announcers to go to the games, even though we were kind of isolated in the booth or fans weren't there. We went through testing. We had to be careful. We did virtual meetings with teams. I did miss going on the field talking to players and coaches before the game, but we had contact, pipe and crowd noise, whatever. That was kind of hard thing too. Having a great matchup and a great game, but no fans at the stands. And thankfully, we've made progress in that area. So I'm really thankful, considering what we were up against, and really that all the sports were able. Some suffered more than others to kind of get through and get to the point where we're going to crown a champion. And look, years from now, they're not going to. I think teams, they're not going to say it wasn't that great because of COVID and the season. I think it deserves a lot more credit. As I said, instead of a question mark, an exclamation point, that any team that can make it through a year like this and hold it together and be a champion, I think deserves a lot of credit. And historically, hopefully, people will think of it that way.
Now, looking back on the season, you've called your fair share of Bucs games over the years, but in 2020, you had to wait all the way until Week 17, where you called the regular season finale as Tampa Bay swept Atlanta to finish 11-5 in Raymond James. What did that game mean to you? Because I know we kind of talked about the excitement behind calling a game by these Brady-led Buccaneers, and the regular season finale was definitely a way to do it.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Even in the preseason, you get to talk. We do some interviews with the guys. It would have been nice to see Brady, since I was the field reporter for Fox when he came back in that Super Bowl, the great comeback against Atlanta. Worked through the crowd to interview him live. Right after the game, it was highly viewed. It was a terrific comeback, overtime. And for him, too, a kind of a redemption kind of season with all that went on. And so you get to sit in meetings and be around a guy who didn't call a lot of Patriot games when he was there. So I thought it was a better opportunity. And then we didn't get a lot of Buc games. But that's because Brady he made the Bucs more relevant than really they've been since their Super Bowl, and put them in prime time, as you guys know. So they were on Sunday Night Football and Thursday Night Football and Monday. Everybody wanted a piece of the Bucs because of Brady. And then, of course, the team was very successful, so that added to it. But it was nice for me to get to do the closeout, because it was a game, and I liked that they could have rested players, and Mike Evans had the injury, but it tells you something about the aggressiveness of not only Brady but Bruce Arians and their approach. Hey, we want to win this game. We want to be the 5th seed. We want to go into the season this way, into the postseason, excuse me. And I like that. You can you guys can get injured in practice, and they do. I mean, so you don't want to be foolish about it. But I've always found teams that rested starters too much, it's worked against them. You lose a rhythm. I mean, a wild card team can win a Super Bowl. We saw it with the Packers. When Rodgers had their run, we're seeing it now, that how close this team is. So it's not the ideal way to go, but I think it says something about overcoming a lot that this team has. So for me, it was really nice to get back into Raymond James, have a few fans there, and to be able to kind of talk to Brady and Arians going into the game, and still kind of sizing up what kind of playoff team they're going to be. And I think I said to you guys when we talked in the preseason that the Bucs defense would be better later in the year than it would starting out. We were a little unsure at running back, but the defense, especially in these postseason games and even in that game against Atlanta, they clamped down. They're really very impressive, and I think have people scratching their heads on offense, even great offenses and offensive coaches like Andy Reid. And so I see that as a key. It was a reason really they won the Saints game and the Bucs beating Green Bay. Was the defense really carried it, but obviously Arians and Brady did the right kinds of things on offense. I hate to use complimentary football. It's a cliche. I always thought that meant if you played well, they compliment you. But I would just say that they played really smart, balanced football and understanding both sides of the ball and the special teams area. Again, it's underrated. You guys know, covering the Bucs for years, the kicking game has been a nightmare. Place ever since Matt Bryant, you can't rely on. And meanwhile, Ryan Suck up a quiet acquisition that has settled that issue, and he's been clutch and reliable, and hopefully that'll continue for the Bucs' sake, and their special teams will continue to improve.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you mentioned the Bucs defense. It was up and down a lot of times. There were some times where, are they good? You don't know. It's a young group, so there is going to be ups and downs. But during this playoff run that you've said, Sean Payton and Drew Brees, they're no joke. Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, they're no joke. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be the MVP of the league, right? What have you seen from this Bucs defense, in particular, some players that have stood out to you during this postseason run?
Well, I think the numbers show, and I thought people were questioning where he was drafted. Sean Murphy-Bunting, right, coming off with interceptions, and we know that Carlton Davis is the best cover guy they have. He was hurt, and then he's back. So that's again getting him healthy in a rhythm. Playing without Antoine Winfield, the rookie junior, obviously did so well. I thought was really going to hurt him. They overcame that. That was impressive to me. I'm assuming he'll be back for the Super Bowl, and so that's big. But I think getting Vita Vea back to really clog the middle, and he's a top pick. He's strong. He's rested. That in the middle with Ndamukong Suh, and then the outside with JPP and Shaq Barrett. To me, and then the play of White and Levante David at linebacker, just impressed. That's as good as anybody in the league, and the way they play it. And you're right about the defense during the year. There were some games, the Saints games during the regular season. You watch, you go, what are they doing? But they figured it out, and whether it's blitzing or who to send on a blitz or when to blitz. So give Todd Bowles credit for that, knowing what players he has in what place. And I think in this game, not to dive into the matchup, but I do think they have a good chance. People say, well, you can't cover Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Well, you may not have to for very long if you have the guys rushing from the outside like Barrett and JPP to keep Mahomes in the pocket. Don't let him roam around and get time. And then also he can't just step up in the middle because you got guys pushing with Fisher out too. Eric Fisher, one of their key linemen. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult than what Mahomes, and I know these two played each other before, but it's a totally different deal, just like when the Saints played the Bucs during the course of the year. So I named a lot of guys on the defense, but I think it takes a lot of guys and how they blend together. And that's what I think Todd Bowles has become a little better, as experienced as he is. Some of the game plan or approaches he had with the defense against some of those games during the year, when I kind of went, what are they against the Saints or a few other, even Kansas City? I think they figured that out based on the personnel that they have. And so I think that will keep this a closer game than maybe some Chief fans think anyway.
And what's so exciting about talking about this defense is, they really did start to come around and play their best football at the best possible time. And, you talk about a lot of the playmakers, but the addition of Vita Vea, for him to come back when he did and to be in the shape that he is, we only expected him to play maybe 20, 25 snaps. He went out there and he played 33. Having a big 350-pound lineman like Vita Vea, a guy who can move the way that he can, and especially a guy that can move the way he can after coming back from the injury that he did, it just adds another dimension to this Bucs pass rush, and I think that's what makes next Sunday's contest that much more exciting.
Yes, and it makes it difficult to run on, which both the same. I mean, we're talking about Alvin Kamara, who's one of the league's best, and he couldn't run on this team. And I know Aaron Jones got hurt in the Packer game, but the Packers prided themselves. That was one of those highest-scoring offense in the regular season. They couldn't get the points because the running game couldn't get going. They became one-dimensional, just like when that was part of the trend where they remember asking Tom Brady in our last game about the most complete game of the year in the regular season, and I he had that half against Detroit. I was talking about the entire team, and I mentioned the Packer game, the earlier regular season Packer game. He said, no, he goes, the defense played great, but our offense, we didn't play great in that game. So he was essentially saying, we haven't played our best football all around, offensively and defensively. And now in the postseason, I think the defense is playing some of the best it has, but the offense, really, they've done enough. But I think they could do a lot more. I don't think they have played their best. And I have to respect the commitment to the run and the way that Fournette, remember we talked when he was acquired, and Ronald Jones, how they've been patient and smart about that, because I think that at least gives the defense the impression that the Bucs can run or will run, even we know that they want to throw the ball and air it out. But yes, defensively, having Vita Vea is a big get, and I like the experience. I'm a little worried, and I was all year, even in the postseason. That's why I thought, well, somebody might. Their secondary, when we asked about that there's not a lot of experience back there, but the experience of Ndamukong Suh or Jason Pierre-Paul, who beat Brady in the Super Bowl as a Giant, and even Levante David with. So I think there's enough there, and they're doing their job so well that I think it allows guys in the secondary, takes a little bit of pressure off them. But this will be the ultimate test because of the way Kansas City does some of the things with the talented people they have, the speed they have.
Yeah, you did mention the Bucs offense and mentioned Leonard Fournette maybe as was one of those late additions. A guy that was on the team when we last spoke to you was Antonio Brown, and of course you saw him scored 2 touchdowns in Week 17, have over 100 receiving yards, and he's been a big part of this Bucs offense, but not so much in the postseason. What do you think Antonio Brown has meant for this team, and where do you think he could play a role in this game on Sunday?
Well, I hope that he's healthy, and I think he will give it a shot because it again at the time it took some snaps or at least some opportunities away from guys like Scotty Miller and some of the others, and we know what he can do in a role. But Antonio Brown, look, if Tom Brady respects you and wants you on his team, and again the code of conduct, the way the contract was structured, the Bucs were very careful about that. But it was Brady who drove this, and then the team supported him, saying, "Hey, we have to make sure that he's in line with us," and he has been. So if he's healthy, he hasn't been able to play rather healthy. In fact, that was probably the last time he was healthy for an entire game. Evan, because of was that Atlanta game at the close of the regular season, and he put up great numbers. Just having him out there as a threat. I mean, he's one of the guys like Scotty Miller who can go deep and add 2 things. I think he'll be a big factor. Of course, Evans and Godwin, but I also think the tight end usage, and Brady good about that, whether Gronkowski, Cameron Brate, however you have to maneuver things, and dumping the ball. That's the one area Brady likes to get it to the back out of the backfield. Those guys can't afford whoever it is, Rojo, Fournette. You can't drop the ball. You got, you have to be sure-handed on those. Those are not. I know you're not a receiver. You're running back as a receiver, but make those catches because you can pick up some yardage. It helps with the shortening the distance. Obviously, you need to go, but it also throws the defense will have to come up and start thinking about that, and that's something that's always been a part of Brady's offenses and his success. And I like that he's brought the tight ends more into it. The Bruce Arians offense back in Arizona, wherever he's been, not a whole lot of tight end, and obviously with great receivers, but it helps open things up. We have 2 really obviously good tight ends too, with Kelsey in this game, who when I was covering the team last year, I was on that Chiefs sideline for Fox when they came back against the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. And obviously Mahomes was outstanding, but the Chief defense did some things differently in that game. And that's where I think the Bucs not have an advantage, but I don't know that the KC defense is as good as the Saints defense or some of the others that the Bucs have run into through the course of the season and the postseason.
Yeah. Mentioning the tight ends, a guy this postseason who kind of took a backseat, took a little bit of a different role than what we saw him do in the regular season. That's Rob Gronkowski, who, by the way, I mean, just a great year from Gronk, from him to come back. And a lot of people talk about not knowing what kind of shape he's in, if he's going to be able to play a full season, because he did struggle with injuries, part of the reason he retired. For him to come back and play the year that he has, and then just kind of, I guess buckle down and take on a little bit bigger of a responsibility in the postseason. He has been huge in blocking these past 3 games. What do you make of Gronk's season? And do you think we see him kind of reemerge in the Super Bowl, or is he confident in that blocker spot? Because he's doing a pretty good job at both.
Yeah, no, you hit it. He's very good at that, and I think that's one of the reasons he retired. It's physically demanding, and then the wear and tear. But this is the Brady factor that goes beyond some of what we're talking about in the game and are elevating everybody's game. Also, recruiting people that he can push the right button with at the right time, whether it is an Antonio Brown or a Gronkowski or some of the guys that have already been on the Bucs. But these are players that he knows. And I like to look the postseason. I call it Brady time. It's also been Gronk time, at least historically with New England. And he hasn't been as much in the passing game because he's been needed to block. And you have other, whether it's Tanner Hudson or the good hands of Cameron Brate at that position. So I give him a lot of credit for coming back. But he doesn't do it if Brady's not the quarterback and he doesn't put forth the effort. And I know that Bruce Arians has been very complimentary of him making the tough plays, blocking the tough moments, not just getting the headlines, but he'll show up in a certain spot. I mean, his speed downfield, that type of thing. But when you need a reliable catch in a short area, that's still a guy that Tom Brady can go to. And I think he feels comfortable with those two guys.
Yeah, one more quick question before we really dive into this Chiefs-Bucs matchup is, you mentioned that you were on the Chiefs sideline last year when they won the Super Bowl. Obviously, it was against the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. And in that game, I kind of remember Garoppolo missing some throws, and there was some real opportunities there for the 49ers to take full control of the game, and they just weren't able to seize it. Against the Chiefs, against the Chiefs offense, you're going to have to not have wasted opportunities like that. A guy like Tom Brady, you wouldn't expect him to make those same miscues. So what do you think the difference between having a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and a guy like Tom Brady could mean in a championship game like this? I mean, this is Brady's 10th Super Bowl. He's been there, he's done that. So
yeah, and we know that he turned it over in the last game, but he's very careful about turnovers when they take place. Brady, he's always been that way. And that game last year, that Super Bowl, Garoppolo missed some receivers, but you're the 49ers with a fourth quarter lead at the size that it was, and your team's built on defense, and they didn't make play. They let Tyreek Hill get loose. They let Mahomes roll out. So they did some things that the Bucs, I hope, paid attention to because of them, and hopefully from their standpoint they won't allow that, because that also changed the dynamic. The other team can't beat you if you have the lead and they don't score, even if you do turn it over or miss a big play. But I agree with your point that you have to keep scoring. You have to be aggressive. That's how Brady and Arians are. I don't think they're going to be foolish about it, but that's how the Chiefs are too, at least offensively, very aggressive in this. So I just, in terms of key plays, big plays. The Chiefs last year had that run where they were behind in every game in the postseason and had to come back. I wonder if there's a little bit of, again, it's not lackadaisical. They're here. They expect to win. They're confident. But, you got to physically be aggressive from the first snap. And that's where I think Todd Bowles and the defense maybe will have a jump. And I do think the Bucs playing at home, they both play in grass during the year, natural grass. But I do think the Bucs being in their own backyard, I know they won't have the fan advantage, but I think for a young team, for the most part, other than Brady and a few of the vets we mentioned, I think there's something comfortable about that. So the game doesn't feel so big for some of, the young players who haven't been in a Super Bowl. Obviously, they've played some big games here, but I think that could be a plus for the Bucs.
Now, taking a look at this game, Super Bowl 55 in Raymond James Stadium next Sunday, what kind of game do you expect it to be? I mean, it has the makings of being a shootout like everyone would hope, a big game on offense, but you've also got the Bucs defense playing the way that they have. A lot of people could bill this the unstoppable force versus the immovable object with the Bucs defense this postseason. And these are two teams that you even said it yourself. These are two teams that don't shy away from their big plays, taking their shots and really going for those big highlight reel moments on the grandest stage that the NFL can offer. What kind of game are you expecting? Are we expecting a high scoring game, or is it going to be a close one all the way down to who has the ball last?
I don't know. Yeah, it could be, and that's kind of how I don't think we're going to see both teams in the 30s, but you might see a 31-28 or a 31-27 kind of game. I don't think either one of these teams want to settle for field goals, especially the Bucs. I saw the Packers in my mind. I saw them affected by Brady, I think, and whether it's a psychological thing or some of the physical things he does. I don't know how the Chief defense will respond to that. To me, I know on the other side, Mahomes is unflappable. I mean, so he's not going to get psyched out by anything. So, yeah, it'll be. I think what we'll see is teams. I'm not sure how the Chiefs will. I think the Bucs will approach this from a let's limit the possessions. Okay, from Mahomes. That'll help our defense. And then when we do, we have to have our plan to either continue. Mahomes has a great arm, even in the pocket. He does great things, but I think he's less dangerous when you keep him in the pocket, so you don't have to guess and gamble about was he going to run and take off. So, and then how you cover, again, they've got weapons all over the place. We haven't talked about the Chiefs running game with Hilaire, the rookie. But I think the Bucs will try to, and it doesn't mean a run the ball, but a ball control offense. And if they get, not afraid, because Arians loves the deep ball, but not afraid if you get, like we saw with Scotty Miller, you get that one-on-one coverage and it's deep. Brady's smart enough, aware enough to take it, but he's also not foolish enough that if he wants that, but he doesn't have time to get it there, don't take the sack or do something silly. He'll dump it off or he'll get rid of the ball so that you can control and keep the down and distance, keep that yardage, limited. So that's what I think the Bucs approach will be. Not conservative, but work the drive, and then let's make sure if we get down there, we're going to be in a position, be thinking 4 downs. We're only going to settle for 3 if it's 3rd and long and we're outside the 20, outside the red zone. I mean, that's my early thought on this anyway.
Yeah, so you talk about the offense and what they're going to have to do. This defense really, especially in the first quarter versus the Chiefs, they really struggled. They played a lot of man coverage with not a lot of safety help and sort of left their corners, particularly Carlton Davis, on an island against Tyreek Hill, and not many people can match the speed of Hill. So I don't think the Bucs will do that again. But what do you think the Bucs defense game plan could be versus this Chiefs offense that right now, I mean, that's a pretty good Buffalo defense that they just made it look pretty easy against. And what do you think that the game plan could be, and how to just, I don't think you're going to stop the Chiefs offense, but how do you think it's best to just slow them down?
Yeah, and limit the possession, something the Raiders did when they beat them earlier in the year. Again, the Chiefs may have been sleepwalking. Obviously, they're a better team, well-oiled machine. I do think Eric Fisher will make, in the offensive line, make a little bit of a difference there, and the Bucs can take advantage of that. I agree with your point about I don't think you can man coverage. You mix things up a little bit, but I wouldn't do a lot of man-to-man with Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman. You've got I'm not sure what the update is on Sammy White, but even with Kelsey, it's just too risky. Now you may have to gamble at times because you want to blitz, but I don't know that they'll have to blitz that much. So the game plan, I would think, and I don't know about the coverage, but because of the speed and the guys you have outside, that you rush wide enough to keep Mahomes in the pocket so he doesn't get out rolling and scrambling. He flips the ball. He's got a great, or he fools you as if he's going to run and you come more forward and he dumps it off and there's a 20-yard pickup with the speed of the Chiefs. So, and I do think and then we talked about Vita Vea in the middle, and I think the speed of Devin White and Levante David, just to mention two from that position, whether they're dropping back in coverage or whether they're coming forward to work on Mahomes or at least take some things away from Mahomes. I think that, we talk about how fast Kansas City players are. I think from a defensive standpoint, that's where the Bucs' speed is. It's not in the secondary. And so hopefully Todd Bowles will figure out a way so that he can counter the guys like Tyreek Hill that can get downfield, or Hardman. And that would be, and here's the other intangible too. We always talk about it. We saw this, the turnover battle or the takeaways. And look, the Bucs, and you saw, Todd Bowles teaches this, other teams do it too, but the tackling the helmet into the football to knock it loose. I mean, we saw that in Aaron Jones in the Packer game. game. So that's another thing that you can't count on that when you're looking at how's this game going to turn out. But when it does happen, and I think that Brady, will be very careful with the football, and Mahomes may be a little bit. He's not reckless, but he's fearless, and so that sometimes can cost you if you have the right from a defense that schemes the right way. And I'm sure Todd Bowles is looking at that closely. So, but the thing is, you can't. I agree with you. Chiefs go down and score right away early. You got to keep pace with them. That's what you have to do. And you can score quickly. If you score, you score, but you get touchdowns. But if not, then Brady's the right guy. So I'm do that against Atlanta with dumping off to running backs to chew up the clock and work the team downfield and in a Super Bowl game. Did it against some other teams as well in the postseason. So that's kind of how I see it going. But a lot of things will unfold. And I do think we have two offensive coaches that adjust really well as head coaches to the game. Reed and Arians and of course Brady on the field does that. Mahomes is a natural talent. And I do think the defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, who was with the Giants before when they beat Brady and the Patriots, at least in one of those, keep tabs on that. He's another one who knows his personnel well and adjusts. And Todd Bowles, I think we saw that, and that's why they've been so good in these last couple of postseason games after the Washington Heineke explosion for points. Even though they won that game, that was starting to wonder too about the Bucs defense. But they're going in the right direction for this game.
Absolutely. As we start to wrap things up, I just want to remind everybody that these past few weeks, we've really talked about a lot of big games here on the show. And as everybody knows, with big games, you need big stakes. Our friends over at Kansas City Steaks has the cuts you crave to celebrate the playoffs and, of course, the big game next Sunday. Go over to kansascitysteaks.com and try out the snack pack combo featuring small plates with big flavor. We were checking out their website a couple of weeks ago, and they have got some great-looking things to bring your game day feast to the next level. Mini beef Wellington steak burger sliders, mac and cheese melt, shrimp wrapped in bacon wrapped oysters. I know everything sounds delicious. It really does. Every order is flash frozen, delivered directly to your home, satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Basically, every cut of steak imaginable, plus appetizers, desserts, barbecue, and so much more. Visit kansascitysteaks.com/gameday and save up to $25 on combos perfect for game day. Plus, get free shipping with code BELIEVE, BLEAV, at checkout. Again, go to kansascitysteaks.com/gameday and use the code BELIEVE, BLEAV, at checkout for free shipping. Kansas City Steaks, big games, big taste. One more question for you, Chris, before we let you go here, and it has to do with not just the city of Tampa as a city and the growth that we've seen these past couple of years, but as a sports market. What does this past year in sports mean for Tampa Bay as the next big major sports market? I mean, as we talked about earlier, the Lightning won their Stanley Cup. The Rays got to hang an American League banner this year. The Rowdies competed for their championship. The Toronto Raptors are on vacation in the Bay Area. And then the cherry on top is the Buccaneers hosting and playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, as a guy in broadcasting, you've talked about, you've been around, you've been through, you've experienced the big sports markets, but I mean, what do you think? Is it time for little old Tampa Bay to be the next one?
Well, I haven't grown up before, and I never thought Tampa. I thought it was kind of an under-the-radar sports market. And I know you don't have your own NBA team. There is the Orlando Magic, but just from what you said, I was there in the Bucs, heyday years. So I saw fans and the line to get a season ticket or the waiting list for Buccaneer football. And certainly I know people criticize the attendance in the stadium, but what the Rays have done on a limited budget, talk about the hockey team, outstanding, and that has brought the national respect across the board, not just in the sport, but for the way that has been run and the success that they have. I know Los Angeles will make a little bit of an argument with their championship of the Lakers and the Dodgers, but the Rams certainly. But to me, the big thing that jumps out at me is Brady taking this team that, and right away when he got here, people were like, Super Bowl team. I was like, that's a lot to put on one guy, but he delivered. And the historical significance of being the only one in the history of the Super Bowls to have it in your own stadium. And remember, this was supposed to be the other way, Los Angeles. Remember, they had to switch. And next year, the Super Bowl will be in will be in LA. They had to switch because of something going on with the construction at the Rams' new stadium and the Chargers. And so the irony of how this falls in what was a crazy 2020. And so I think we'll have a terrific game, and I think it is good for it. It's a little frustrating for me that we couldn't, because it's one of the great places to have a Super Bowl anyway. Tampa, Miami. I mean, I was there in obviously Miami last year with, you want a warm weather city, and people come all week and golf and have fun. And Tampa's such a great party town. There's so much to do and such a variety. You want to golf, go to the beach, and that whole Tampa Bay area. And yet it's limited for the visitors coming in, given what we've been through with the pandemic. But they'll see. And Tampa Bay's it's not a small little town anymore for sports. It's well respected, and Brady again brought it all back, at least from the NFL and the Buccaneers standpoint. And the Super Bowl's always been a great event there at that stadium and in that city. So I would say America will be watching. The world will be watching, and not just the game, but Tampa Bay as well.
Absolutely.
Well, one more quick question before we let you go. Do you have a game pick? And if you do, what is your X factor on offense or defense? It can be either one. We're not really you don't have to pick the Bucs, but what is your game pick, and who do you think is going to be the X factor?
I'll just say I thought I'm leaning towards the Bucs. I thought the point spread, and I don't gamble and odds makers, but people ask me, I thought the Chiefs as the defending champs should have been more of a favorite going in. I know the general betting public likes them at the low number. I thought it was 3, and I know maybe that's because the Bucs home field. It's not your typical home field advantage. An X factor for the Chiefs is, and I saw this down on the field during that game when they came back against the 49ers, the Super Bowl last year. Tyrann Mathieu on the field with that defense and on the sideline when they were fouling up and there were issues. Yeah, there's coaches making adjustments, but he was a key player talking to other players about certain ways to bring it and adjust, and then he performed well. So watch him if the Chiefs defense is struggling and they need to turn it around. He's a guy who can, and obviously if they're doing well, I would think he would have a lot to do with that. And Bruce Arians knows him well, going back to the Arizona days. For the Bucs, I'm leaning on their defense winning this game. I know that sounds weird in a game with two great quarterbacks and having Brady, but I like the way Brady feels the game, distributes the ball. And I like if they're healthy enough on offense, the choices he has to make Kansas City's defense one that he can at least move the ball enough, get enough points to win it. So, yeah, sorry to kind of bow out on it, but as I said, I was giving you a score there of 31-28, and I'll lean in the Bucs' favor, but obviously the Chiefs should be favored with a healthy Mahomes and the kind of. But again, their defense, I think the Bucs' defense has to win this for them. The Kansas City defense can just play their game and let Mahomes do his thing.
There we go. Game prediction and all. Chris, I want to say thank you so much for joining us here on the show again. It has been a pleasure to talk to you, and looking forward to a great game this Sunday.
Yeah, good to be out with you guys. Enjoy the game. It's always great talking football.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Meyers of Fox Sports joins the show. Thank you again. You can check him out on Twitter and Instagram, I believe. You can also follow the show, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. That's just about going to wrap things up for us here today on episode 166. The next time we talk to you, it'll be Thursday for the game preview. We got a very special guest joining us for that one, Chris Gronkowski. And I only say that here on the show because we're not going to officially announce it yet. We're going to kind of let it be a tease for the people who have listened to this point. But yeah, really looking forward to that one. Like I said, follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And of course, Bucs news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. Like I said, we will not speak to you guys again until our game preview show on Thursday, but it is an action-packed episode in our first ever Super Bowl preview show. So take that information and do with it what you will. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish, and our very special guest, Chris Meyers of Fox Sports. I'll talk to you guys on Thursday. Until then, go Bucs.